So we'll try this again. My first attempt to record this class failed, technical failure. Probably my fault, but nonetheless, I'm going to make this a relatively short introduction to CSS 299, specially designed for the people who were not in class with me this morning. 2 of the 5 were in class. You 3 that live outside the area were not able to join us. You will have already received an email from me telling you where to find this recording, giving you a link to it. And at the end of this recording, I will give you a short assignment to prove that you actually saw it. I need that done as soon as you see this, which I hope will be by tonight. CSS 299 is what we call it professional development. Professional development is basically a course in how to sell yourself in the job market. The job market is more complex than it was a few years ago, especially when I was in the job market. There are a lot of people looking for jobs. There are a lot of jobs, but there are also a lot of people looking for work. And so you have to stand out from the competition. This class is about how to stand out. So let's take a look. I'm sharing the screen here. This is the shell for the class in week 1. If we look at the resources quickly, we will see that that we have some objectives. We have some resume examples that you can look at, a resume checklist, and a technical versus transferable skills worksheet. You should be working on this worksheet as well, and looking at your technical, your skills, both soft skills and technical skills. Transferable skills are things that work on any job, such as familiarity with Microsoft Office or related, maybe open source versions of Microsoft Office. You have another one is customer service. If you've worked in retail and been successful, you have learned a lot about customer service. And customer service can really differentiate a job from one person from a job from another. So work on that. Resume examples are a guide only. Some samples here. I'm going to, because I have some doubts that y'all have the textbook, Resumes, Cover Letters, Networking and Interviewing by Eishen and Eishen. I will be copying some pages out of that and putting them into the shell as we go through the class. I hope that they can be of use to you. So what we're going to do is just go down through the various assignments for the week and some hints. I want to talk some more about what resumes actually should look like as well. Please do the introduce yourself. A couple of you have done it. Assignment 1, job posting just right for me. This is a place where you pick out a job that is something that you would like to do as your job after graduation. Be aware that you're probably not going to be graduating real soon. Some of you are closer than others probably. But the chances of this job being available when you actually graduate aren't very high because the competition is high. However, if this is your last mod and you're about to graduate and you want to go ahead and use this as a springboard to applying, then by all means do so. I'll help you as best I can. So where do you find it? Well, there's all sorts of places. There's LinkedIn, there's Indeed.com, there's Career Builder, there's just lots and lots and lots of places to find jobs. So you want to go through and look. If you, excuse me, if you are out of this area and you want to look in the area in which you are indeed living, please do. Even if you're in this area and you're thinking you'd like to leave, especially on today, this is definitely a Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day here. I can't blame you, but just apply for it or just work on this. This will be the basis for all of your work. So what you want to do is find the job description, copy the entire description, all of the information about the job, about the company, anything that's there that's related to the job, contact it, all of that. Put it into a Word document preferably, and then upload it to the box. Now, a word about uploading. If for any reason, and for reasons we don't understand, sometimes people just can't upload files, even if 4 out of 5 in the class have a submission box, somebody sometimes doesn't. Anytime you can't upload an assignment, email it to me through Canvas, and that will be fine too. I check my email regularly. So let's back up here and look at assignment 2, the personality assessment. This is, I don't know if any of you all have ever taken a personality assessment. This is not a Myers-Briggs. It is not an MMPI. It is a general view of how you come across, who you are, what's your personality type. Are you assertive? Are you shy? Are you outgoing? Whatever. There are no wrong answers to these things. Please understand that if you learn something about yourself you don't like, it's not because it's wrong, that's the wrong answer, it's because of the way you answered the questions. This will help you understand a little bit more about who you are. Some of you may have taken this or something like it in CSS 101 when you took that class at the beginning of your career here at College America. Take that, again, upload it, upload the results into a document, and then write a couple of paragraphs describing how you've seen these traits come out in your work experience. And this isn't true confessions time. Don't feel that you must sit there and bare your soul about everything you think might not be perfect about yourself, but look at how you can overcome some of the things that might be seen as negative. So let's go to discussion 1 is resume tips. There are resume writing tips that you can look at in the materials that are here, and you can go and find an article and just talk about how you're going to apply these tips to your resumes. And we will. 6 questions. These are some things for each of you to think about. Think about them. Give some thoughtful answers here. What do you hope to learn? What do you want to know from a professional development course? Who were you when you started, and who are you today? How are you different? The next question about Mary Kay. Please don't think that just because her motto is written the way it is that we are looking for something like that. There are, again, no right answers. The only right answers are what's important to you. So list your 3 most important things in your life in order, and tell us a little bit why you chose them. Number 4, life is full of challenges. We grow because we use all our muscles, sometimes get knocked down, sometimes leap high. Okay. Sometimes it helps us in tougher times if we think about someone we admire. We could use a reminder. If you say, I'm in a really rotten spot right now, how would he or she handle this situation. So someone you may admire, someone you may feel has a good handle on life. First off, has to be someone alive. You can't go back to George Washington and say, well, George would have done this. No, we don't care. You can't go back to ancient times either. Not a relative. Why not a relative? Families are important to most of us. And sometimes the person you admire the most may be a relative, but you need an outside perspective. So you need to step away from that. Okay, number 5. This is we're getting your career underway here, and please, we want to tell us a little about what you're thinking, what you want to be, and why. Don't worry about the age. If you want to give your age, I don't care. But in 5 years, I want to be. In 10 years, I want to be. In 20 years, I want to be. The thing to think about is that life changes. In 5 years, you may not want to be what you thought you wanted to be in 5 years. You may have found something new. When I first went to work in the pharmaceutical industry with degrees in chemistry and was working in the lab, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in the lab and invent drugs. 5 years later, I don't want to be in the lab anymore. My priorities had changed. I got tired of going home stinking of chemicals every night and having my wife say, get thee into the bathtub right now. But more importantly, I had a different perspective. I found out that as much as I love lab work, I also had many other talents and interests. As a result, in the pharmaceutical industry, I went through a series of different jobs, actually many careers, none of which existed when I was in school. And that's the nature of life today. You will see things develop that don't exist today. You'll have job possibilities that don't exist today. And you may want to change career. But if you have no long-term goals at all, where are you going? The last one is some quotes from about setting and achieving goals. There's a bunch of them here. Pick 3 you like, explain why. Or if you've got if you have some other source, these guys range all the way from Seneca, an ancient Roman, up to modern day, people like Zig Ziglar and Tony Robbins. The issue is if you have something else that speaks to you louder than any of these, put it down. I'll be happy to add it to this list for future use. So this is really about learning who you are as well, and accepting that, because who you are is fine. Now let's go to the first draft of your resume. First draft of the resume, your skills, education, employment history, job duties you performed, your first point of contact. What is the purpose of a resume? The purpose of a resume is to get you an interview. That's by and large the purpose of the resume. People look on paper the way they look. It's when you walk in the door. It's the attitude you bring with you that sells you as an employee. You may look perfect and then walk in the door and somebody says, he won't fit here. I've been there. I've had the perfect resume for several jobs. Walked in and both of us realized that I was not a good fit. My personality was not going to fit and mesh with the people there. So we had a very nice conversation, parted ways, and nobody looked back. That's happened to me a couple of times, and it will probably happen to you. But that's the purpose of an interview. But in order to get to that stage, you have to get in the door. That's the resume. A resume is not a compendium of everything you've done in your life. It is a short document. Your first resume needs to be about 1 page long. And the reason I say that is because hiring managers, when they post a job, are going to get, in some cases, just inundated with applicants. They need some way to differentiate. If they pick up somebody and he's got a 4-page resume or 5 or 6 or whatever, they're just going to throw it in the trash. They're not going to read it because they don't have the time. Now, what do we put into a resume? Well, it starts off, you have to have at the very top a letterhead. Your name, your address, your contact information, which means phone and email. And a word about emails. They should look professional. And perhaps if you have an old email address that's cluttered up with all sorts of junk, or if you have an email address like He-Man27, you don't want to use that. Those are not professional. Go ahead and get a Gmail address that's your name or something close enough to your name. For instance, I can't tell you how many 100,000s of Michael Burks there are in this world. It's one of the most common names, Irish names around. And so I couldn't use michael.burke at name your email client, server, whatever. I couldn't use any of that. So I had to come up with a variation, and I chose MT Burke, and I had to follow that with the number 59. My birthday is May 9th, so it was my birthday. Easy enough to remember, professional enough, it looks reasonable. It's never been a problem for me. But you need to have something that looks professional. So leave off the Facebook and Twitter and etc. All the social media crap. You just don't need that there. In fact, you don't want it. In fact, if you have a bunch of stuff on Facebook that you'd rather people didn't know, I'd try to figure out a way to get rid of it real fast, because one of the things the hiring managers will do once they get a list of people they're interested in is they'll go through social media. I'll give you an example. My daughter went to school with a young woman who thought it would be real funny to wrap herself up in cellophane, nude, and post her picture on Facebook. Her friends, including my daughter, were absolutely horrified and talked her into taking it down. But if an employer had seen that, he would have said, forget it, or anyone would have said, forget it, unless, of course, it was a strip club. But that's about it. So you want to leave, you want to get rid of stuff that you might rather not have people know. I'll give you another example. When my daughter was in a basically 5-mile-an-hour fender bender, and a woman sued us for $1.5 million because she was driving my daughter was driving my car, claiming that she'd had $350,000 worth of medical bills. Well, she had some medical bills, and then all of the big medical bills appeared after she posted on Facebook that she had done a face plant playing indoor field hockey, and that's what threw the jury. The jury basically threw it out because clearly this woman did not get hurt in the automobile accident. She got hurt doing something else, and she was stupid enough to put it on Facebook. So be careful what you put on those things. Okay. So we have the resume checklist. Look at the technical and transferable skills worksheet and the samples. So what you want to do is make your resume about a page. It should start off, as I say, with a letterhead, and that letterhead needs to be attractive. Now, what's attractive to people varies. My personal preference, which is just my preference, is that letterheads be centered. They could just as well be left justified. Right justification is not common, unless you left justify name and address and right justify contact information. That can work. But nonetheless, whatever it is, that is your letterhead for everything you do, including your cover letter, etc. Because we want to look consistent. First section should be, basically what are your career objectives? There's a lot of things that go in here. You can name the position you're after. You can say, I'm looking for an objective in customer service in the IT industry. You can, whatever short, very short description says what you're after. Now, here's where you go back to the job application or the job posting. That should match what they're advertising. If you're after customer service in the IT industry and you send it to somebody who wants a computer programmer, well, you're probably not going to get much of a response on that because it's not what they're looking for, obviously. So the next two sections can be either one or the other. I prefer to go with qualifications. And those qualifications, again, need to match up to what the qualifications being required by the employer are listing, whatever they're listing in the job posting. So if they're looking for, in the medical field, if they're looking for a person that's a certified medical assistant with at least an associate's degree from an accredited program, make sure that information is there. What happens is they will see that, they'll look at the qualifications. If they don't match what is in the job posting, it goes away. You won't even hear from them. The next section should be education. And here you start from your most recent degree down. If you are a college graduate, just list your college degrees. You don't need to say you went to high school. In order to get into college, you either went to high school or you got a GED. But the important degree is the one you got from college. So what you want is to list your most recent degree back. For instance, I have 2 degrees. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in chemistry. My resume lists my master's degree and then my bachelor's degree. I don't say a thing about high school for obvious reasons. Then, relevant work service. Relevant. If you're applying for a job as a medical assistant in a doctor's office, and you worked baking bread for Great Harvest for 5 years, that's not really relevant service. You want something that's relevant. If that's all you did, then post it, because it's more important that they know you actually worked. But you really want to have that relevant service. And here's where you look at your technical versus transferable skills. Your relevant service for working in an office, if you worked retail at Lane Bryant for 5 years, then you had to have good customer service skills. Working as an MA in a doctor's office, you need good customer service skills. So those are transferable skills. So you want to look at that. You want to check grammar. You want to check grammar. I teach a statistics class here occasionally, and one of the questions we have is relates to a survey of 100,000 hiring managers, and 45% of them said that they would automatically reject any resume or cover letter that had any spelling or grammatical errors in it. Just wouldn't even think about the person after that. So what you want to do is be sure that you have all of your grammar, punctuation, spelling, layout should be consistent. Font should be a good readable font, Times New Roman, Arial, Courier. Those are the most common. I haven't a clue why Microsoft has chosen whatever it is, Calibri or whatever it is as the default for Office Word. But whatever font you use, it should be a plain font, very readable font, no italics, no curly cues, no Gothic script, none of that stuff. You want it to be readable. If you make it hard to read, it gets thrown away. We just saw a wedding invitation from some friends, and you couldn't even read it because they had chosen this very artsy script And even though we knew who it was, we finally had to say, well, I guess that's what it's saying, because it sure didn't look like English to me. So be careful when you're doing that. This is a first draft. What I want you to do is get this stuff down. You'll get some feedback from me. We'll do some feedback work here in class. But we will actually talk through these things as we go. Do not put references. References are always available on request. You don't want somebody getting interested in you and calling your references before they interview you. Okay? Before they even decide whether they want you. So when they ask you, you of course provide them, but references upon request. So then you go through your relevant work, and then you do your then if you have any honors, citations, let's just say, you were given a civic award for something you had done, or let's say that you were in the military and you got a commendation for some work you had done. Include those. People like people who are achievers, and that's seen as being achievers. So work on your rough draft. As I say, keep it to a page, and it's due at the end of the first week. Sooner is better. Give me a chance to look at it. So let's go to the next, which is your cover letter. Cover letters accompany a resume. You just don't send in a resume. It just doesn't come in over the transom and say, "Oh, this looks good." Your cover letter is something that is the beginning of your sales documentation. Your cover letter will say a number of the things that are in your resume, but they'll say it in a different way. For instance, your cover letter would be addressed, if you can find the name of the person it goes to, it needs to be directly to a person. If not, it should be hiring manager or HR manager or some other semi-personal greeting. Use exactly the same letterhead as on your resume. Everything here should be consistent. Use the same font, same spacing, left justify it. Your resume, by the way, should be left justified, not centered down the middle for everything. The only thing that should be centered ever is your letterhead. But the cover letter should start off with, "Dear whatever, I found your job posting for," name the position, name where you found it. You want to name where you found it so that they'll know what's being effective. I mean, that's just basically a bit of courtesy back to them, even without working for them, which always makes for good good feelings. So tell them where you found it and say, "I'm very interested in this position." Your next paragraph says why you're qualified. So you go through your qualifications. And again, you've looked at the job description. You have structured your paragraph to say, this is what I know. For instance, if you're looking for a position as a technical programmer for computer systems, and one of the requirements is that you have at least 2 years experience with Java, then you want to put that right there, right up front. I've been working with Java professionally for the last 3 years, 5 years, whatever, but put it right there up front. If they want proficiency and certifications, list them out. Those also go on in your resume under your qualifications. Your certifications do. List everything out that fits the job description, and then your closing paragraph should read something along the lines of, "Thank you for taking the time to read my letter and resume. I will call you in a week or a week and a half or 10 days, whatever short period of time you want to put down. I will call you to schedule an interview." rather than you can contact me at the above number to schedule an interview if you want. Well, that might not get you anywhere. If you actually take the time to make the call and follow up, it will look better. You may not get the job, but what it will happen is you will look much, much better as a result of it. So this is really a um, a real sell piece. And again, your first draft, I will take a look at it and make comments. I find that if people give this some thought, it's pretty good. So, excuse me, please. So that's the assignments for the first week. So we want to do that. Just as a heads up, in the second week, you're going to be starting on the APA company research paper. Now, the APA company research paper is essentially your LRA for this class. And what you want to do, anytime you're applying for a job, you need to know as much as possible about the company when you go in for an interview. So we're going to be, this whole class is going to be based on a presumption that you pick a job and you are actually invited for an interview, because your final exam will be a mock interview. So the APA company research paper will be a study of the company. Now, here's a little warning. A very large company, if you wanted to apply, if you were in business and you wanted to apply to United Airlines here in Denver, that's a different kind of research than if you were applying for, say, Coalfire Systems. If you were a computer security person and applying to Coalfire Systems down here, which is based here in Colorado, a cyber protection, cyber security company. Very different set of qualifications and a very different set of information available on their website and in general on the web. But what you want to do is learn about the company. You want to know how many employees they have. You want to know what their lines of business are. You want to know how big, if possible, the department that you're applying into is. You want to know as much as you can about the company, revenues, how long they've been in business, everything you can find out. Because what you want to be able to do when you go in for your interview is ask some questions about the company. You want to be able to ask, anything that's relevant to you that you can't get elsewhere. Master application. Master application is a document that summarizes everything that you might need to apply for any job. Now, what that means is all of your work history, all of your educational history, including your high school. I don't think anybody expects you to remember what grade school you went to, and especially if you're like me, was raised in the military, so we bounced around. I went to a lot of grade schools and a couple of high schools. So I don't, so don't, you don't have to have a gory detail of that, but your addresses for the last 10 years, your military service. These days, there's a sort of a toss-up. I think it's perfectly legitimate to, when you're working and when you're putting your resume together, if you've had military service, put it in. Put it in because you've learned teamwork. And teamwork is what companies really want. They don't want lone wolves. They want team members. So put it in. And so put that, your military information, and at that point, you can even put in what your rank at discharge was, and what your MOS was. So you can have a lot of those things in there. The master application will have all of your employment, right down to working at McDonald's when you were 16. Or if you were like me, You know, when I was much younger, I was bagging groceries at a military base commissary since I was raised in the military, and we didn't have child work rules. I did that. So all of that's in my master application, which nobody sees but me. I don't think my wife has even seen it. It's in a file I have down in our office at home. So this is a much longer document. Its length is depending on the amount of material. You know, I said put down your addresses. I have one friend who was not only in the military, but he also worked for the State Department. And he told me, he's 68 now, he told me he's moved 38 times in his life. And I thought I'd moved a lot, but nope, nowhere near him. So what you're going to do, this master application, there is a form for it. So when you pull it up, if you open this file, you will see in the readings and tools, the master application. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and just fill it up and use it to fill out the information. Add rows and columns as needed to make it work. But go ahead and get that started. I'll want to see it. We'd like to see it complete. You'll carry it with you when you go to your interview, because if somebody asks you a question where, you know, for one, my wife and I have a 2-year gap in our employment. We went backpacking around the world for 2 years, about 40 years ago. That has to be there. Somebody, if I were working for, just say for some reason for the government, which at my age I probably never will, but if I were working for the government, they'd want to know what was going on with those 2 years, and we'd have a nice conversation. That may or may not hurt me. I don't know. It's a fact. You'll also be doing a second draft of the resume and your cover letter. There's some other material you can look down. We have lots of other assignments. This is an assignment-heavy class. I advise you not to fall behind because the assignments are quite complicated. So if you have any questions, email me. It's the best way to get to me. Even when I'm not at school, and I'm only at school on Mondays and Wednesdays, I'm only part-time. Even when I'm not at school, I will check my email 2 or 3 times a day. With the exception sometimes of weekends, I might not even turn the computer on a Saturday or whatever. Sunday, I definitely do. But definitely do the job posting, personality assessment, get started on the discussion, and look at the 6 questions, work on your resume, etc. We want them by the end of the week. What I will do when I receive these things is I will make comments on them, and I'll send those comments to you. And I will I would prefer it if you'd send everything in Word, because I can make my comments via the edit function in Word. The changes, the track changes section of Word, and you can see where I'm working, and then I can simply email it back to you with the comments on it. One thing about comments, these are your documents, and I can only give the comments as I see. There's only one of you of the 5 in this class that have been in any of my classes before. So I don't know most of you. So I have to make my impression from reading, since I probably won't see you on campus. I have to make my impression from reading your material. If I'm off base, if my comments don't make sense to you, or if I have misinterpreted something, don't hesitate to let me know, or to say, well, I really want to keep it this way because whatever. I just want your documents, your documentation, to be as strong as possible when you go out there looking for a job. Hey, as I said, if you have any questions, please email them to me. I'm more than happy to comment back, to get back to you as quickly as possible. I really enjoy this class because my experience here has been that when you come out of here, you're much more prepared for the job market. Excuse me. So I'm going to cut this off now for all of us, and I will see you on Wednesday.